Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. Now, let me make sure that the monitor speakers are off so that way you guys don't get an echo, 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 echo. How are you guys all doing tonight? Again, very happy Tuesday to you. Fantastic to see you all here tonight as we have ourselves another evening of The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand, a travelogue memoir by Lawrence Davidson. For those of you guys who have been joining the journey so far, you know we have gone to various places in Thailand, spent some time at a monastery, went to some festivals, got our heads shaved. I realized the cover of The Flow is a picture of him right outside of the tent that he stayed in while at the monastery. I'm certain that is what that is. We have visited, I want to say we went to Bangkok, we went to Chiang Mai, we went to Chiang Rai, we have met people, good people, conversed with old men outside laundromats, wandered the streets looking for good food. Because if there is one thing that Larry Davidson likes, it is good food. We've described quite a bit of good food in here. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about Thai cuisine, go and check out the last chapter that we had read, which happened to be, let me, was chapter 11. Chapter 11. I don't ever remember what the chapters are. What do you expect from me? I would also recommend, if you listen to no other chapter in here, stop by the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArmenius, and listen to chapter 9. Chapter 9 was very impactful for me personally. It talked a little bit about the act of giving and the act of receiving. You want to know more? It's a fantastic chapter for it. Highly, highly recommend it. It was quite meaningful for me, and I would hope it would be quite meaningful for many of you as well. Of course, all of the previous chapters are available on the YouTube channel for your listening and watching pleasure. Did you know that on YouTube, when you are watching recorded videos, you can change the speed? Am I reading too slow for you? Kick that speed up. Get up to 2 times beast mode. Am I reading too fast for you? Slow it down a notch. You can kick it down 0.75, zero point 0.5. Do you want it a little bit faster, a little bit slower? Whatever. You have control over the replays. Now, if you're here with me live, you are stuck with getting the performance that I give you because that's the way, live works, I don't speed up my own voice. What are you gonna do, right? It is a great way to catch up on what you have missed. Throw on some headphones, some earbuds, whatever it happens to be, while you are doing a load of laundry, washing some dishes, sweeping and mopping the floor, snow blowing. Hey, it's that time of year. Listen to some of these books. Listen to some of the chapters of this one or any of the other books that I have done. Of course, if you are stopping out to the YouTube channel, check out the description of the chapters. I have links to Mr. Larry Davidson. Go give him some love. Stop out there, write him a little note, write a review, provide some love. Always good for an author to hear. But now, enough about me expounding extemporaneously. Let's get back to why you are really here. And that is to hear the reading of The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand. As a reminder, because we are in Thailand, some of the words will be unfamiliar to me. We may run into words in Thai, in Buddhism, Buddhist words, Pali words. I will tell you, the author has been loving to throw Latin words at me. I'm not the greatest with those. I will do my best to say them correctly. But know that when I mispronounce, it is not because I'm doing it purposefully, but because they are words that are unfamiliar to me and I am doing the best that I can. Nothing more you can ask for from a narrator, right? If I was actually recording the book, and I mean recording it as an official audiobook, I would look up each of them before I said them and make sure I had them right. But it's hard to do that live. I'm not taking that pause for it. Instead, we will do the best that we can. And you are welcome to go in and put it into the chats to provide me some gentle correction on how it should be said if you know better than I. But now, wherever you happen to be, grab yourself a hot drink or a cold drink. Sit back, put your feet up, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into another evening of The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand. Hydrate before I start. And let's begin with Chapter 12, Deja Chiang. You don't compare countries. You just trade one set of absurdities for another. The trick is deciding which flavor of chaos tastes better. Leaving Chiang Rai was emotional. It was much harder than I'd given even the slightest momentary thought to. Nam took me back to the bus station, and as we hugged goodbye, I felt my throat closing up. Settling into my seat, I gazed out the window with an unexpected longing to stay in Chiang Rai forever. Well, I was excited to get back to Chiang Mai. Chiang Rai had stolen my heart from its sibling to the south. But I was on the bus and looking forward to seeing Chiang Mai again because by this point, I had gotten to know the place. Some great people, restaurants, bars, cafes, galleries, bookstores, and more. I knew what was where and how to get there. It had a feeling, a little like home, and that was one of the reasons I was going back, instead of straight south to Bangkok, to answer a question that had been bouncing around in my head. Could I live in Chiang Mai? I hear what you're thinking. You've been to Chiang Mai for a grand total of a couple of weeks, and now you're thinking of pulling up stakes back home to plunk yourself down in a small city on the other side of the world, where you have a less than rudimentary grasp of speaking and even fewer skills with the written language. I thought about that too, and it was all a part of the matrix of could I, should I, why, and why not. Chiang Mai is much like Bangkok, but without the 24/7 sensory overload. It has a lively, youthful, international feel to it, with an incredible array of food and drink options, an artistic sensibility, a broad range of cultural activities, and delicious food for any palate. Add in that the location is fantastic. It has an airport and bus and train stations, making it ingress and egress easy. and everything you need to make a beautiful life in an exotic yet accessible place full of history and wonder. What's not to like? Was it a daydream that falls into the wishful thinking category? Others have done it and done so successfully. They're called expats, and I was contemplating joining those ranks. Then again, as Groucho Marx quipped, I wouldn't join a club that would have me as a member. I've got a bad habit gambling on last minute travel deals. This meant that I hadn't booked a place in Chiang Mai until 2 nights before sliding out of Chiang Rai. Everything was either laughably expensive, somewhere I'd already stayed before, or so aggressively boring that I'd rather bunk down in a rice paddy. One place popped up proudly, touted itself as perfect for large gatherings and families with a lot of children, which translates to huge parties and screaming kids. Fantastic. Absolutely not. I'd rather share a bunk bed with a meth head. Then, one morning, a notification lit up my phone. A discount at the Village Hotel, a place I'd been low key obsessing over since the first time I'd perused the listing. I'd been stalking Bun Thai like it was a hot celebrity, and though it was included in every travel app, they never budged on price. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not, as you may have gathered, opposed to spending money. When the urge hits, the quality is amazing, or I'm feeling stupidly reckless, I'll spend, within reason. But a great deal? That hits differently, especially when it's about where I'm going to lay my head down for the night. And there it was. A big, fat, enticing discount, valid for booking that day only. I pulled the trigger. My plans were wide open until late December when a friend would fly into Bangkok when we'd head south to Koh Chang in the Gulf of Thailand for the days and nights surrounding New Year's Eve. There's nothing quite like spending a party weekend in the tropics with white sand beaches and rum. The Bantai Village Hotel, tucked east of Chiang Mai's old city in the Chiang Klan neighborhood, sat conveniently close to the city's other famed night markets. It was showered with praise, not just from travel magazines and booking sites, but from everyone who'd bothered to leave a review. High marks across the board: staff, pool, breakfast, neighborhood, rooms, beds, bedrooms, you name it. Designed in the traditional Lana style I'd come to love at the Namtan, it featured dark wood swing latch doors with open patios wrapped in lush gardens. I was eager to stay there and see what that corner of Chiang Mai had in store for my wandering feet. As the countryside melted by outside the coach window, my mind spun back to the friends I'd made in Chiang Rai: Nim and Nam, Amanda and Kita, Pascal, the fanatical Swiss guy who thought life was meant to be lived on a bicycle, and Chef Chu, the noodle master, who could outdrink a frat house if you put a bottle of scotch and a few Fernet shots in front of him. All of them were really good people. Real people. All of them genuine and open. No drama and no bullshit. When, not if, I make it back to Thailand, Chiang Rai will be my first destination for an encore to catch up with them and explore more of the gorgeous pastoral countryside. Rolling into Chiang Mai's bus terminal felt like getting prodded with a live, high voltage main right to the temple. After a week of easy paced days and nights up north, the onslaught of traffic, noise, and swarming people jacked my pulse through the roof. My sabai level was high, too high, leaving me woefully unprepared to rejoin a bustling world. I knew I'd adjust, but gee buzz, that first jolt back into live action chaos was like trying to run a 100-yard dash immediately after waking up from a nap. Rush hour didn't help. It took forever to grab a cab, but when I did, the fun began. My driver, an older fellow with one long, stubborn, greasy strand of hair left on his scalp, tobacco stained teeth, and fingers the color of new corpse yellow, wearing a massive gold chain weighed down with Buddhist medallions. He couldn't wait to show off his English skills. He said, "My English great," which it wasn't, though it was charming in a deranged lunatic way. I surrendered to the experience with grins, thumbs up, and nods. It was a comical ride bouncing around with his surreal monologue, a bizarre soundtrack of advertising slogans, random gospel lyrics, and quotes from Gunsmoke, Dragnet, and MASH raped my eardrums. He seemed especially fond of Hot Lips Houlihan, making lewd sounds as he recalled Frank Burns's lust, which was now obviously his. Sometimes you've got to let the madness flow and hope to hell it knows where it's going. The Bantai Village Hotel was crammed into a labyrinth of alleys and ridiculously small, curved, high walled lanes. Check in was smooth and so professional that I wondered if they confused me with someone important. My ground floor room was under a deep, heavy overhang with a veranda choked with pillow encrusted benches, comfortable chairs that whispered, "You'll be sipping Johnny Walker Black on me later," and a small table complete with ashtray. The toilet bowl cleaner blue color of the pool in front of the room was intriguing. All was surrounded by tropical trees and shrubbery that cast shadows in all directions. As the concierge finished the tour of the room and I stowed things away, I was ready for a discovery jaunt. The front desk clerk handed me a clever map of the surrounding alleys and streets, a yellow highlighter showing the easiest ways to either escape, to, or from the madness. I say clever because of where the Bantai was located. There were tricks to the immediate neighborhood, and the map showed in detail how tiny twisting alleys connected up with a couple of major roads that, if one didn't know how to navigate, would be easy to get lost, go feral, to be found years later hiding out in the back room of a massage parlor. Not that being lost is a bad thing, but it might look bad if family flew over with a search and rescue team, found you knotted up in a ball in some dark corner in need of a shave, raving for more oil. Worse yet, once I left the hotel grounds with its Wi Fi coverage, my phone's GPS couldn't find signal past 1 bar. The map would have to do. Rather than head towards the familiar grounds of the historic old city, I went the opposite direction towards the closest night bazaar. When traveling without an agenda, I find it best to follow instinct. Within a block, it became very apparent. This wasn't the rustic charm of the old city or Niman's hipster zoo. This was the real, raw Chiang Mai. The part where locals hang out, sell pirated iPhones to each other in one corner, fake Chanel bags in another, and get massages that make you good and strong long time. Heading south down Road towards the river, taking my time to duck into alleys, popping into vintage everything shops, I had another syrupy espresso from a hand pull machine older than me, and offered return greetings to all the friendly ladies sitting outside their massage studios. They are welcoming, and even if you don't want a massage, they are great to sit and have a chat with, as they tend to know the ins and outs and all the social dirt of their neighborhood. Plus, they have all really have dirty senses of humor. I stumbled upon the Fa Lana Night Bazaar, a genius monstrosity where dozens of micro bars wrapped around pool tables. Each place had their bar girls ready to hustle anyone and everyone out of their traveler's stash in exchange for making them feel like the center of the universe. At least until they woke up the next morning with no wallet, phone, or dignity left. It was fantastic. I kept my wallet safely tucked away in my pants and came upon the OMG bar and restaurant at the corner of Loy Crow and Charo and Protet. What attracted me was a classic Guinness pub sign hanging proudly over the corner. Capitulating to desire, I went in and ordered a Guinness and a shot of Jameson's because life is short, and I was way too sober at the moment, what with all the coffee. Inside was all football, rugby, and a tournament sized pool table at the back, with some likely lads taking a game so seriously that I figured it was a hustler's school. The menu read like an edible apology for colonialism: bangers and mash, fish and chips, steak and kidney pie with mash and liquor, sausage rolls, and every weekend they did up a classic English Sunday roast that required a reservation. Joy, the bartender, explained that her husband, Stuart, a British likely lad, owned the place, and that the pool league boys in back were tournament pros and were so serious that it seemed national pride was at stake. Maybe it was, because they usually won tournaments playing against other bars around town. There was a match coming up with another expat pub, so tonight was ruthless practice with game after game being shot. As friendly as everyone was, this was not what I was looking for. I had one more pint of Guinness, pinned the location to my Maps app, and wandered off to the Ping River to walk off the creeping buzz. The riverbank still bore the scars of the 2024 floods. You could still see the high water mark at the top of the pilings, where mangled plants were still warped around the base of the roadway on the underside of the bridge as a reminder of how fucked the place had been. The sheer volume of water during the calamity had broken over the banks and into the neighborhood. The folks at OMG showed me where they had to rebuild the entire lower half of the bar and kitchen. Mother Nature can be a real bitch at times. Heading back, I wandered around the bazaar looking at the stalls that were hiding behind the gauntlet of microbars. There was an eclectic mix of artesian jewelry and homey decoration items I had not seen at other markets. I got enmeshed into a long chat with a Persian rug dealer named Zahir, whose shop displayed gorgeous hand knotted rugs. I was very upfront with him that I wasn't buying a thing as he tried to wrangle me into his beautifully appointed brick and mortar store. But there was one enormous area rug hanging on the far wall that had caught my eye, not only for its size, but the extraordinary beauty of the piece. It was breathtaking, and I wanted to know what something like that cost. Zahir had the droll patience of a man who knew he was about to waste time talking to a traveler who had no intention of dropping big bucks on a rug. He humored me anyway. Once I explained my journey and total lack of intent of owning a landmark area rug, he dropped the sales pitch, and we sat and talked on the stoop of his shop as the bazaar across the street hustled. Zahir and his family had immigrated from Iran 3 decades prior, but many of his extended kin back in Tabriz were hand knotting rugs at the highest level of quality and had been for generations. I learned about knots per square inch, KPSI. I stopped jotting notes after a while and simply listened to his masterclass. He explained natural dyes they employed, and the gradients of silks, cottons, and wools used, and the art of hand knotting rugs. He spoke with a reverence usually reserved for holy relics and first release mint condition Beatles albums. Once he got into knotting methods, I was lost, but still fascinated by his passion and in depth knowledge of the craft. Finally, I asked what the piece on the back wall cost. Do you really want to know? Yes, though I know I'll be shocked into depression, I laughed. It is actually the finest piece we've ever had in the store. It took 9 people 4.5 years to make, Zahir explained. I take it that means it's exorbitant? Zahir smiled. Quite. And? The suspense isn't killing me, but I'm getting hungry. I laughed. How much would you say it's worth? Man, I have no idea. The last really nice rug I bought was small and it was 400 American dollars. That was over 30 years ago, I continued. Let me explain. That piece is going to wind up in a museum someday. If someone were to buy that and we found out that pets would be playing on it, we would not sell it to them unless they paid full price in cash. He laughed. And 25.5 million baht. Zahir took out his phone and did a quick calculation, showing me the exchange rate. That would be about 750,000 US dollars. I laughed so hard, I almost dry heaved. Yeah, wrap it up, and I'll pop it into my carry on, as I wiped a tear of confounded mirth from my eye. We chatted more as I found him to be a really great company, so I invited Zahir out to grab a bite to eat when he was finished. I helped him close up shop, and when the last metal door was rolled down and locked, we headed down the long line of street carts lined up at the edge of the bazaar and shared a fantastic array of halal dishes: chicken biryani, roti with quail eggs, lamb curry, a sensational rice pilaf, and watermelon smoothies. Zahir had an early morning ahead of him, so we parted ways as I went back down the alley, past the Planet Hollywood Chiang Mai. That would be a hard no. Then into the part of the night bazaar where all the micro bars were. I thought a game of pool and a couple of drinks would be fun before heading back to the Bantai. At the first bar, I nursed an absinthe with ice water while secretly keeping score as the pool hustling bar girls worked over a couple of drunk Dutch guys, taking their money and getting them to buy watered down drinks, for which tourists pay double. I almost bought popcorn, the show was so good. Suddenly, a tiara topped birthday girl bombshell blasted onto the scene with a dozen glitter, sparkle, and sash laden banshees in tow. Where I'm from, we call them woo girls, as in high volume woo energy. The horror. Being an unencumbered farang, I was immediately targeted like a gazelle by a lioness hunt party. Before I knew it, I was pulled from my stool, grinding against glittery strangers, taking shots of questionable provenance, and laughing at jokes I'm pretty sure were about me. Biology is a hell of a thing. Somewhere between the fourth bar and the third sloppy kiss, I pulled the I have to pee escape move, melted into the crowd like a sought after criminal, and ghosted my way back to the Bantai. It was 4 a.m., and I had glitter in my hair, along with the taste of regret and cheap whiskey lingering like a bad cologne. In Thailand, the pools are rarely heated. During the hellish blast of summer, which is exactly what you want, a teeth chattering polar bear plunge to shock the heat stroke out of you. My morning plunge was a stupid attempt of carpe diem, making me instantly regret my decision to pursue instant resurrection. The sky had been a moribund gray for days. There wasn't a trace of radiant heat, and the water had turned into a cryo chamber. Shrinkage and internal screaming profanities over, I pulled myself out, rushed back into my room, and took a warm bath in the sunken Japanese ofuro styled tub, trying to convince my body that survival was still an option. With no grand plans to shackle me, I wandered across the jungled patio to the breakfast buffet at the hotel. Yes, I know, never eat the hotel buffet. But the Buntai had a fantastic assortment of fresh fruits, croissants that looked perfect, and homemade yogurts. I read and wrote the morning away on the patio couch with a pot of coffee the size of my torso as I pondered what I would do with my remaining days in Chiang Mai. I decided to head down to the local hypermarket and pick up some chocolate, fruit, juices, some smuggled durian, and other munchies to stock up the room. Heading out in a new direction, I didn't want to run into any lost woo girls who got separated from the pack, still hunting for me after the night before. I was about to enter a big sea market when WhatsApp lit up on my phone. It was my monk brother Josh. Now, let's be honest. We all have a list of people who we always answer the phone for. The rest we let go to voicemail purgatory or wait for the follow up text. Don't deny it. You do this too. I answered Josh's call immediately. He was in Japan, excited about picking up Japanese kitchen knives, so he called me for advice. We chatted back and forth, and I geeked out about shun knives. I have a collection of razor sharp beauties that slice through tomatoes, arteries, bone, and stainless steel. They are relatively easy to keep razor sharp, and if you are right handed like me, they fit perfectly in your grasp because of the octagonal shape of the handles. Then we caught up on life in general. It was one of those calls where you hang up and the world seems a better place. Groceries in tow, I headed back to Bantai to stow my goods, then decided it was a good day for a long stroll. I filled the fridge and slipped into my flops, dialed up a grab, and booked it to the zoo, way over on the far side of town from where my hotel sat. It was time to wander around Chiang Mai, find new streets, sniff out new discoveries, and ponder my newest plans for Bangkok, which was coming at me faster than I had anticipated. The Huai Ko Arboretum was a shady strolling park laden with native trees, shrubs, and flowers, all neatly tended and marked with small signs. Rather than walk along row after row of songthaos and the incessant traffic belching fumes going to and from the temple on the mountain top, the interior path through native trees and shrub species was peaceful, with big trees and hedgerows blocking out the din of the city. Eventually, the arboretum path spit me out at the Engkiao Reservoir, a man made lake busy with joggers, bikers, and one strolling traveler stuffing mango slices in his face. There was a cart, you see. I came across a rugby match in full swing just in time to see a bunch of university kids murder each other in the scrum. Some shouts and possibly a few dislocated ribs later, I moved along, heading back to the main drag. Coming across a building advertising New Brain, I wondered if I should make an appointment. Mine was long out of warranty coverage, so I kept moving. Further along, I was tempted by a very attractive storefront that, once past the door, had scattered disjointed array of Chinese made clothing and fake, antique Asian furniture, made of pressboard and child labor. The clothing was all cheap knockoffs, though with very professional looking brand name labels. I almost applauded the effort of the scam. Man, the hustle never sleeps. I crossed the road and dodged a few scooters trying to break the sound barrier and made my way towards the Maya. Buried beneath air conditioned multi levels of swag is Rimping, a high end hypermarket. I used to haunt the place when I lived in the Niman Hood. The cut mangoes? Witchcraft. I grabbed another tray like an obsessed neurotic, though I did pick up watermelon and pineapple as well, and started a slow roll back into familiar territory. I swung into Okada Izakaya for a snack. A few skewers of meat on sticks, grilled over hardwood, and a beer, and I was on my way again. Cutting southeast through the city's ancient spine, I passed by old haunts and shops that had become part of my Chiang Mai mental map. Next stop, Lost Books. This is one of my favorite sanctuaries from the sun in the whole of Thailand. I needed something new for poolside reading. I swapped some travel stories with the clerk, Sangi. She and I had similar tastes in genres and authors with the same zero tolerance policy for literary fluff. I asked her for some offbeat recommendations and walked away with new tales in my bag. From there, it was up the road to Gravity, where the crew greeted me back like an old friend. I ordered my usual avocado toast with fresh pico de gallo and a tall iced latte. Jasmine, the unofficial soul of the place, had started on my Java the moment she saw me strolling towards the door. We exchanged a smile and a why. A quiet, though heartfelt exchange of mutual respect in a city that runs on it. After refueling and cooling down, I popped into the Namton next door to say hi. Sand was running the show as usual, the human example of grace and quiet competence. Gorge floated in and out like a specter. We caught up. Chiang Rai tales about noodle joints, duck soups, and that I still didn't like cow soy. I hadn't known, but Sand came from a small village to the north of Chiang Rai, so my journeys were familiar to her. When I told her about the hand pulled noodle shop, she said she made it an almost sacramental commitment to eat there every time she went north. I tipped her off about the Indian joint further along the sidewalk without reservation, and explained that this was not pre made, reheated tikka masala on a plate of overly spiced dal. Sand lit up like a sunrise, saying she would definitely hit it up as she was heading north to visit her family soon. By the time I wandered back to Bantai village, my stroll was just shy of 10K and 5 p.m. Perfect time to wash the sweat and dust off, then go hunting for dinner. Ta Fe Road is one of Chiang Mai's major arteries. It cuts east straight into the heart of the old city through the Ta Fe Gate. You know, the one that everyone takes pictures in front of that bronze plaque. Built in 1296 AD, it's the epicenter and ultra famous landmark of tourism in Chiang Mai. But the path to get there from the Bantai was convoluted and secretive. Instead of walking the long way round to major arteries, I walked around the back of the hotel, down a small alley covered by a long arbor covered with flowering vines, like some enchanted shortcut in a Miyazaki film. Past a couple of tiny family run laundries, shirts and sheets flapping on their lines like prayer flags. Past Wat Buparam, whose quiet monks and stray dogs barely register the foot traffic, except for one small monk who liked to hide under his robes on the rise of the courtyard stupa until a visitor strolled by. Seeing a pile of orange robes on the stone steps attracted attention. I saw the little trickster, as visitors approached, pop up with a giggle. He was lousy at hide and seek, but fantastic at surprising visitors. Within 2 minutes, you're on Ta Phai, if you know the way. If you didn't know the alley was there, it would take an extra 15 minutes going around the long way. Like I said, clever map. The Ta Fe Road was a fantastic busy mess, in a good way. A loaded mix of dive and upscale bars, some very good To Mei restaurants, tourist shops of all sorts, including a couple of really good antique stores that, well, the merchandise was excellent. The attitude was all about taking the tourist money through aggressive sales. The road itself was crowned by 24 arching ornate structures covered in white lights at regular intervals. At night, these were ablaze with thousands of tiny bulbs, making it into a makeshift runway for drunken backpackers and the occasional street food pilgrimage. It was there, amidst the haze of sizzling coconut oil and a throng of sweaty humanity, that I stumbled upon Pa Day, a roti cart. Not the thick, puffy roti you half heartedly tear through at your local Indian place. Nope, this was different. Those roti were ultra thin, crepe like miracles, crisp on the outside, tender, chewy goodness inside, much like a croissant, and stuffed with your choice of savory or sweet fillings, depending on which flavor of gluttony you were after. The line was 15 deep on three sides, a chaotic ballet of greedy desperation. That's what happens when your 5 year running Michelin Award street cart that sells roti for $1, you command a rapt audience. I waited among the churning horde, carefully studying others' order to figure out how, 1. I could get one of these touted masterpieces of simplicity myself, and 2. Not appear to be an idiot when it was finally my turn. The ritual was simple. Follow the trickle of bodies to the cart, grab a chit, check off your desired fillings banana, Nutella, egg, cheese, then scrawl your name at the top. Around the corner, you hand over the chit and money to the gatekeeper, along with a paltry amount of cash. Then you wait, jealously watching, as tray after tray of roti float past into someone else's grateful mitts. Beyond this chaos is one woman. One. A wrinkled, bad ass elderly woman who had to be in her 80s, cooking all of the orders. She manned the roti tawa, the traditional flat griddle that delivers that ethereal crispy exterior, armed with nothing but her bare hands and what must be asbestos tipped fingers. No spatula, no tongs, no spoons. Just pure, calloused mastery. She could cook 4 roti at a time, each one needing about 5 minutes to achieve that perfect golden crispy crust, get filled, folded, and flipped again for a crunchable seal, then handed to the ever anxious customer. Hovering around the pickup table, an ungodly level of palpable anticipation mixed with desperate patience permeated the crowd. Every time a tray went to someone else, you could see a soul die a little as the excitement in their eyes faded. Seeing the sagging deflation at the realization that the roti, the one you thought was finally yours, is handed to someone else. It's comically heartbreaking. I ordered banana and Nutella and melted into the crowd to hang back and watch humanity waiting for their turn at a Michelin rated roti. Travel tends to break down barriers. To wit, the two fellows I wound up next to in the crowd, our six eyes intently watching the progress of roti after roti being fired up, were friends traveling together. I never got their names, but one guy was Israeli, the other Syrian. They had met on the road in Nepal, then again in Cambodia. They became fast friends and were going traveling through India together when they left Thailand. The world's a funny, wonderful place at times. Finally, after 45 long minutes and more emotional whiplash than a season of Lost, it was my turn. I said my goodbyes to my newfound roti brothers and went to stand vigil at the pickup table. Watching that old woman work, flipping roti after roti with fingers that should, by rights, have been vaporized years ago, I began to salivate. And then it happened. My name, called out like a hymn. My tray was handed to me like a sacred offering. I dodged the desperate gazes to find a quiet spot down the sidewalk. I took my first bite. Holy fucking Toledo! How can something so simple be everything your mouth has ever desired? The whisker thin, crispy crust shattered under my teeth, giving way to soft, steamy, chewy layers inside. Then the warm banana and molten Nutella hit, and for a brief moment, all was right with the world. No wonder Michelin noticed. That little cart deserved credit and praise. My roti disappeared in seconds, leaving me with the desperate, guilty thought I should get back in line. But the throng had doubled, and my appetite needed something more substantial. I'd be back. Next time, I'd be ordering two. Minimum. I had plans for the following day that required an up and at it early morning, so dinner would be an easy to go pad see ew and tom kha gai takeout. I ate poolside on the patio and enjoyed my quiet meal serenaded by frog and cricket orgies hidden from voyeurs by the ponds and bushes around the courtyard. I had already had that outrageously great roti dessert for my first course and didn't want to spoil that memory hunting for anything else. Being close to my last day in northern Thailand, I decided to go on an adventure. A planned excursion run by a local company that put group packages together called Chiang Mai Mountain Biking and Kayaks. I had no desire to go mountain biking, instead opting for a different full day. Caving at Deo in the morning, lunch at a monastery, then kayaking a lazy river, the Mei Ping, in the afternoon. I don't usually book group activities, but I wanted to experience a lightweight outdoor sporting adventure, for which northern Thailand, especially the area surrounding Chiang Mai, is justifiably famous for. Talking is humanity's favorite defense mechanism against introspection. A truck picked me up at 7 a.m. sharp ish. I was rested, caffeinated, and ready to roll. I was excited for the day until we collected another passenger, a human Eeyore who proved to be, let's just say she was difficult. She started complaining before her foot touched the truck step. It was too high. If happiness and optimism were oxygen, she would have suffocated long ago. In my head, I gave her 10 minutes before I started rooting for Darwinism and natural selection. At the company headquarters, we got a standard don't die briefing on the do's and don'ts of not dying. That's where I met my salvation. Pip, South African from Cape Town. She was quick witted, funny, and equally alarmed by the emotional black hole we were now orbiting. We quickly formed our two-man clique, essential for mutual emotional survival. CCDD, or in longhand, Chatty Cathy Debbie Downer, was still prattling on, a word vomit machine gun, about everything that would go wrong and how we were all going to suffer. Did she not pay attention to the Do Not Die lecture? Our guides, Bohr and Muth, were a jovial, joking duo, while being pros at the same time. They clocked the group dynamic within moments, quarantining CCDD as if she were emotional Marburg. She didn't even realize what they were doing while she kept her doom and gloom verbal diarrhea running. I used to kayak Class 3 rivers back in California before I realized I didn't want to die. I wasn't great at whitewater kayaking, but enjoyed it all the same, and since I'm alive, I guess I did okay. Class 3 runs require cockpit kayaks complete with float bags and a spray skirt, plus handling the Eskimo roll trick to flip upright if you went over, which I did. A lot. I got pretty good at the sea hip and paddle snap out of pure necessity. The boats applied for our excursion were sealed, sit on top kayaks. The May Ping River was a sleepy Class 1 run of about 9 kilometers, where the greatest danger was sunburn. At its deepest, through only a few stretches, it might have reached 6 feet. So even if you did flip, you'd get wet, and that was it. But first, caves. The Chiang Dao caves are a sprawling network of limestone tunnels, halls, caverns, and claustrophobia located under Doi Chiang Dao, the third tallest mountain in Thailand. This cave system is located about 70 kilometers north of Chiang Mai. The system stretches several kilometers into the mountain. As we pulled into the parking lot, we were greeted by a beautiful sight, a peaceful little temple complex abutting the entrance to the cave system. Monks and local vendors were selling flowers, shrine offerings, and food pellets for koi, which swarmed upon at the entrance. The area was surrounded by lush jungle and towering cliffs, lending a primordial feel to the place. Once inside, an earthy, musty smell enveloped us like a blanket. The stalactites, stalagmites, and frozen in time stone ripples of the floor were beautiful. Chambers echoed the sound of slow dripping water, continuing their gravity induced building schedule. It was a living soundtrack played throughout the caverns as it had done for eons. There was a sacred feeling throughout the caves. Pip and I felt a sense of awe, as if time had completely stopped. CCTD was stumbling and complaining towards the rear, but at this point I had created a mental block, so she wasn't as painful. The caves were filled with dramatic stalactites, stalagmites, shimmering rock formations, and bat guano. Illuminated with electric lights, the main trail is tourism paradise. Other zones require a guide with a lantern to explore, lending a mystical, magical, and adventurous atmosphere. Several of the caverns housed ancient Buddha statues, shrines, and carvings, showing the site's long spiritual significance. It had an Indiana Jones vibe going for it, which Pip and I enjoyed. Guess who didn't? The air inside shifted from cool to warm and back to cool, depending on elevation, but always a clammy humidity holding you in its invisible grasp. Many tunnels were narrow and winding, then opened into grand halls, two of which were magnificent, called Tam Phra Nguyen, Sleeping Buddha Cave, and Tam Seu Deo, Cave of the Stars. Our guides had hired a local to bring us into deeper sections further into the system. Those guides carry old school oil lanterns which cast eerie yellow glows and shadows on the paths as we followed them through tight crevices. At one point, crawling on our bellies to get through to a particularly fantastic grand auditorium. Darker and tighter, squeezing through small gaps and crawling like worms along the stone floor, we were rewarded by grottos filled with glittering crystals, strange rock shapes, and more tucked away Buddha statues surrounded by flowers, incense, and candle offerings. Our guides were fun and knowledgeable, pointing out Kitty's hog nosed bats, enormous huntsman spiders, and a snake called a cave racer that finds bats absolutely delicious. They spotted the snake, a rarity, way up high above our heads on a small ledge, right next to where bats were sleeping off their nocturnal bugfest. How that serpent got up there? I have no idea, but I did get a pretty good snapshot of it. Well, wondering how I'd react if I slipped off its perch 30 feet above our heads and landed on me. They are non venomous, but I assumed the worst that it would fall, usually its fangs as a climber would use an ice axe, to arrest its descent, spearing his teeth into my neck. We made our way past Nagini without incident. Lunch was eaten through a simple exercise, ignoring the soundtrack of Eeyore complaining about something or another: the rice, the air, her own, or everyone else's existence. Pip and I grabbed ice cold beers out of the refrigerator, which met with silent smiles of approval from both our guides and a disapproving scowl from CCDT, who shook her head and told us how irresponsible we were because of the dangerous kayaking trip ahead of us. Pip and I laughed. After lunch, it was on to kayaking. A second group joined up with us as we hit the river. Within about 30 seconds of launching, two people managed to capsize in what could generously be called a minor riffle. That was about 2 feet deep. It was like watching baby deer try to walk for the first time. Back at the shop during the "Don't die" instructions, our guides had asked if any of us had prior experience with kayaks. I quietly told them of my time on the rivers flowing west from the Sierra Nevada range. They were happy because now there were 3 experienced boaters. Only Pip had spent any time in a kayak before, and that was on gentle runs like the one we were about to do. I was asked to be a part of the lead and to help out if anyone was really inept. Right at the start of the run was a Class 1 tongue rapid, which I gleefully paddled into. Having a paddle in my hands and riffles under my butt for the first time in ages was fantastic. Bouncing through the little waves and troughs, I eddied out at the end, turned and saw 2 of our group lose it into the water. This was going to be a long float. With a couple of soaked boaters climbing back into their crafts from thigh deep water, we were on our way further down and around the Bendy River. A few more tips and dunks happened, but when people realized all that would happen was they'd fall in the river up to their necks at the deepest points, the fear factor lifted and our neophyte boaters gained a bit of confidence to tackle little curving riffles without further incident. This was certainly not the Grand Canyon, or even a Class 2 paddle, so I was able to spin my boat around constantly to make sure no one was drowning and check out the flora and fauna along the banks of the not so mighty nor roaring Mei-ping. Overhanging dark bamboo forests interspersed with tropical hardwoods, then broad open fields and orchards growing all manner of grains, fruits, and vegetables down to the riverside. Each little ecozone housed common kingfishers, Alcedo athis, red-breasted parakeets, Pizzacula alexandri, and great egrets, Ardea alba, who made their presence known as we rounded this, then that bend, flapping noisily to escape our brightly colored flotilla. I enjoyed the egrets immensely as they took off slowly, like dinosauric airplanes. The pace of the river started to pick up a little bit, so I could finally have some fun playing in a standing wave, surfing the nose of the boat upstream. Rounding a bend, we came across Wat Fa Lat, a jungle temple. Our guides explained that it was normally a secluded and very peaceful retreat that we would have stopped at, but because of the floods, it had been damaged and was now awaiting funding to repair and rebuild sections that had been either damaged or swept away by the raging walls of water that swept down every river and stream as the monsoon season battered Southeast Asia. It was still very cool and a little King Kong-ish. On the way back to town, we pulled into a village store where Pip and I picked up a few beers. I realized that this was CCTD's kryptonite, and as Pip and I chatted, miracle of miracles, our third wheel settled into silence for the remainder of the trip, seemingly at the end of her emotional torture. Why she ever signed up for the trip, I'll never know. Through it all, I still, to this day, wish her well and may she find her peace somehow. Dropped off at Bantai at 7 p.m., I hung my river damp swim trunks and t shirt out to dry on the patio chairs. I was hungry. A quick shower later, and I was out to find dinner. I had no idea what I was in the mood for, so I let my feet lead the way to delicious. I made my way down to Chang Klang Road, and after rejecting a few cuisines I came across, Yoshimune Izakaya, a Japanese place that was modern, chic, and busy. By now, you know I love sushi as well as grilled skin and guts on a skewer. So I went in, and as luck would have it, there was one spot open at the sushi bar. It was meant to be. But they were out of sake. I mean, really? How is that possible? Settling on a beer, I ordered up some yakitori chicken livers, chicken skin, chicken hearts, fatty pork skewers that sizzled and dripped as they were handed over the counter, and grilled okra. Then it was sushi time. Their list wasn't extensive, but they were doing something I hadn't seen before. Most of their nigiri sushi set was served burned. They used a blowtorch, the kind you'd see used by a guy in a full face welder's helmet. I was sure you could hear the blast of pointed blue white flames out on the street with the door closed. It was overkill, but the results were delicious. The top surface of the fish took on a delicious, light and oily char, while the rest of the fish was still raw, creating a juxtaposition of texture and flavor. I ordered whelk, unagi, eel, burned salmon with tartare, burned ebi, sweet freshwater shrimp, with lemon, and lo and behold, the special of the night was otoro, the ultra fatty belly of blue fin tuna. That I asked for sashimi style, which got me a smile and a daisukedo. Love it, from the sushi chef. The next day would be my last in Chiang Mai, so I figured I'd call it an early night. Or so I thought. I wandered back to Bantai using a different route, winding through the residential back alleys to catch a glimpse of local life powering down for the evening. Just around the corner from the hotel's entrance, I stumbled across a bar called Cafe Blanco, a name that made absolutely no sense, since nothing about the place was remotely white. There were 6 seats wedged around a 90-degree bar and 3 stools bolted to a narrow ledge out front. That was it. I was the odd man out, stepping into a scene that clearly hadn't been expecting company. The bartendress and her girlfriend looked momentarily stunned to see a foreigner wander in, as it was clearly a locals only joint, not flagged on any tourist map. Luckily, they had some excellent premium booze on the shelves and just enough English for banter. So we traded shots, beers, and bad DJ choices via the bar's communal iPad. They were fun, flirty, and saw me as a walking bar tab with decent manners. Next door was Billy's Italian Restaurant, a name that inspired about as much confidence in authentic cuisine as a guy named Vlad the Impaler opening a hot dog stand. I'd seen it online while scouting dinner options, but skipped it on name alone. It was well reviewed, but all the praise came from guys named Mike from Maryland and John from Brighton. Not a single Thai name in the bunch. That's a red flag dipped in marinara. Hard pass. By 11 p.m., I figured it was best to quit while I was ahead. My room was less than a 3 minute stumble away, and I had one last day to enjoy in Chiang Mai, preferably hangover free. The morning dawned bright and clear, already sweltering by 6:30 a.m. It promised to be a scorcher, so I declared it a me day. Pool, book, bit of writing, and a 40-second stroll to Wat Burpharam for some meditation time. I had some leftover snacks in the room and 3 fingers of Johnny Walker Black to polish off. No point in lugging it south when Bangkok sells liquor by the tanker load. I'd picked up The Sorcerer's Apprentices by Lisa Abend at the Lost Bookstore, a well written peek behind the curtain at El Bulli, Ferran Adria's mad scientist restaurant on the Spanish coast. The book isn't flashy, but it's a solid slow burn look at the staff who kept the machine running. It paired nicely with fruit, chocolate, and the thickly padded chaise lounge tucked under the overhang outside my room. Still, I couldn't shake a craving. Pho and banh mi. I'd come up empty searching Vietnamese restaurants nearby, but just south in the Myang Kam village neighborhood was a place called Pate Chiang Mai on Sri Don Chai Road. It was well reviewed and mostly by locals. The twist? It was halal, which meant no pork. A major curveball for Vietnamese staples that rely on the stuff. I was curious. How were they pulling off banh mi without it? Let's pause a moment to appreciate what a proper banh mi really is. In my not ever slightly humble opinion, it's the greatest sandwich on earth. The Vietnamese lifted the baguette from the French, then cranked it up. Pate, pickled daikon, carrots, cucumbers, grilled meat, chili slices, fresh herbs, and a splash of magi. It's a party in your mouth with no intention of ending early. The kind of sandwich that disappears faster than dignity at an open bar. So, where did this sandwich sorcery come from? In the mid 19th century, the French were doing their Indochina thing, imposing architecture, cuisine, territorial theft, and colonial cruelty across Southeast Asia. Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, parts of China, all administered under the tricolor. It was mostly a horror freak show, but a few culinary gems managed to slip through the blood soaked bureaucracy. The baguette stuck, and can you blame them? A well made French baguette is a minor miracle. Crusty, chewy, aromatic, a loaf with swagger. The locals were hooked, and even regions that didn't traditionally grow wheat began experimenting with cultivation just to feed the demand. The influence didn't stop in Vietnam either. Cambodia developed the Num Peng, and Laos brought forth the Keo G Pate. Wheat. Here's the catch it hates humidity, which is basically Southeast Asia's whole vibe. It took decades to get decent crops going with right place, right strain, try, fail, then finally success. Until then, wheat had to be imported, a journey of over 8,000 nautical miles from Marseille, which made it impractical and very expensive. To stretch the milled wheat, Vietnamese bakers mixed in rice flour, creating, in that addition's wake, a lighter, airier loaf. Today, the Vietnamese have taken the art of the baguette to a heightened, albeit different space. Because of the heat, humidity, and types of wheat grown in Vietnam, the baguette has undergone a transformation. Whereas the classic French baguette is an uneven, lumpy, rustic long loaf with a serious, thick, mandible exercising, crunchy crust and hole filled interior of gluten created, chewy goodness, the Vietnamese version is much more uniform in shape. The crust is much thinner, yet also possesses a wonderful crunch, while the inside is soft and, well, bready. And voila! The Vietnamese baguette. The fillings are variable. The baguette is not. I hoofed it down to Pate Chiang Mai, hoping for greatness, or at least a competent impersonation. The place was a clean, casual, hole in the wall with Thai and Muslim families slurping noodles and devouring sandwiches. I slid into a two top, scanned the menu, and faced my usual Thai menu roulette. Fortunately, I'd picked up enough to know Guy meant chicken. They'd subbed chicken liver pate and char siu style grilled chicken for the pork. Bold move. Worth a shot. I ordered the house banh mi guy and a pho bo, beef pho. I thought wistfully of my favorite pho spot in Seattle, a family run joint in the Ballard neighborhood on 15th, where the broth simmers for days and the tendon and tripe work medicinal magic on aging joints. But I knew better than to expect all that here. I asked the waitress if they had any of the good, awful stuff. She smiled, shook her non comprehending head. Out came the phone. I typed in my request. Another smile. A polite no. Can't blame a guy for trying. The sandwich and soup? Solid. A proper farewell meal. Humble and hearty. Not a bad way to say goodbye to Chiang Mai. The morning was gray and sullen, as if Chiang Mai itself had rolled in clouds just to see me off. It matched my mood: quiet, heavy, not ready to let go. I packed slowly, half hoping some invisible hand might intervene with a reason to stay. I didn't take the train. There's a masochistic romantic notion associated with overnight rail journeys. That is, until you're reminded by the pervasive pain in your spine, knees, and kidneys that it isn't actually all that romantic after all. For $39, I could fly south in just over an hour. An easy trade. But northern Thailand had burrowed deep. Chiang Mai, with its golden temples and alleyway surprises, with its gentle monk chants at dawn and bars hidden behind exotic potted plants. Chiang Rai, that quiet sibling with the wild imagination, its blue and white temples, its mythical tigers, and improbable calm. These places had become more than pins on a map. They were chapters I didn't want to end. The friends I had made, the flavors I chased, the quiet mornings and riotous nights. They're stitched now into the lining of who I am: memory, imagination, and soul. As the plane lifted, I pressed my forehead to the window, half hoping I could see one last glint of a temple spire or a mountain silhouette through the haze. Nothing. Just clouds. And a feeling I knew all too well: the ache of moving forward when parts of you linger behind. There we go, chapter 12 in the books. What do you guys think? Did you enjoy it? I will say he is an entertaining writer, is he not? And damned if that man does not love him some food. Anthony Bourdain, resurrected. All right. Are you ready? I believe I am ready. I think we have time for one more chapter tonight. So let's get to it with chapter 13. What's up, Doc? You can visit temples anywhere in the world, but it helps if you shut up long enough to hear the echoes. What is what? Let's begin with that question. It sounds simple, but like most things in life, a simple question often unfolds into something much deeper and layered, like an ogre. Got that, donkey? Throughout the southeastern Asian continent, the term Wat can refer to either a Buddhist temple or a monastery. The difference being that a monastery is where monks live, meditate, chant, and study, whereas a temple does not have living quarters. The term is used widely throughout Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, and Sri Lanka, and sometimes loosely in the West. Wat indicates a Buddhist sacred site, a building or multiple buildings. Today, the term Wat is also used for ancient temple ruins. The most widespread usage of the term Wat, familiar to Western cultures, is Angkor Wat, the sprawling 12th century temple complex in Cambodia, whose name roughly translates to Temple City. Fun fact: it's located just outside Siem Reap, a name that, with no small amount of historical awkwardness, means Siam defeated. Siam being the former name of Thailand, and Thailand being the tourist base camp from which the most people visit Cambodia. So yes, history has a long memory and a sharp tongue. Every Wat is beautiful in its own way. The intricacy and details of the site, each with its own architectural variations, seem endless. Though there are variations from Wat to Wat, there is always an adherence to the central myths, themes, and legends which comprise the stories of Buddhism, and often Hinduism as well. The word itself, Wat, is derived from Sanskrit, meaning enclosure, but in Thai it's evolved to signify far more: a place of refuge, of learning, of transformation. In the strictest sense, it translates to something like City of Temples. And if that doesn't set your spiritual expectations sky high, nothing will. I found myself hopping from one wat to another like a spiritual bar crawl. Thankfully, minus hangovers. Each wat is unique, a distinct fingerprint of cultural, spiritual, and artistic expression. Some are minimalist and serene, nestled in back alleys or up in the hills like secrets whispered from history. Others are maximalist, psychedelic visions of intense color, gold leaf, mirror tiles, and serpentine staircases guarded by mythical creatures that look like they were designed during a multi night ayahuasca jag. And yet, for all their differences, there's a shared vocabulary that threads them together. The same core symbolism appears again and again: lotus flowers in bloom, fierce guardian deities staring down evil spirits, Naga serpents slithering along balustrades, and Buddhas. So many Buddhas. Standing, sitting, reclining, meditating, teaching, smiling, frowning, and occasionally smirking like they know things you don't. Psst, they do. The stories told in those temples through murals, carvings, mosaics, woven textiles, written history, and statuary often are drawn not just from Buddhism, but Hinduism, ancient Thai folklore, and Chinese cosmology. Wat Arun, for instance, perched dramatically on the banks of the Phraya River in Bangkok, is a dazzling mix of Buddhist reverence and cosmic multiculturalism, looking less like a temple and more like a porcelain spaceship built by enlightened aliens. Temples in Thailand don't just tell you stories, they immerse you in them. They surround you with smells of incense, jasmine, and bergamot, the hypnotic thrum of chanting, the shimmer of heat rising from tiles and flagstones, the bark of a stray dog who's claimed the altar as his personal space. It's all part of the experience. Sacred, chaotic, layered, and alive. Temple etiquette. Do not be that tourist. There are rules when visiting Watts, and before you roll your eyes, let me clarify. This isn't about blind conformity. It's about respect. Respect for the space, the monks who live and practice there, the teachings of the Buddha, and, not least, the thousands of years of tradition that shaped those sacred grounds. This is not hard, folks. You don't have to be a Buddhist to behave decently. Fortunately, following those guidelines is not in any way like trying to master the mind blowing details of, say, quantum mechanics. Nearly every Watt makes it incredibly easy for visitors to comply as well. This is not a trick quiz from the culture police. The monks want you to visit, learn, and take it all in. They're not setting traps to catch you in a tank top. Here are the basics. Shoulders and knees must be covered at all times. Hats and sunglasses removed once inside the buildings. Shoes come off before stepping into any sacred structure, especially the ubosat and or wihan. Those are the main assembly halls, the heart of the Wat, where the most revered Buddha images are housed. Think of the wihan as a spiritual living room, but for the entire cosmos. So maybe don't stroll in there like you were arriving at a beachside barbecue. The ubosat is even more holy. It's the ordination hall and often off limits. Turn the volume off on your phone. You don't have to turn it off or put it into airplane mode. Just silence the thing. No one wants to sit in contemplation, gazing up at a large golden Buddha while listening to TikTok notifications and pings from text messages announcing your dinner plans. And speaking of sound, try to keep your voice low. You're not in a mall. You are in a living spiritual site. Now, for the behavioral part. No touching the Buddha statues. Not for luck, not for your social media feeds, not even if it just feels right. Buddha is not calling on you to caress him. Those images and statues are sacred, not set pieces. Photographing monks without their permission is a no go. I know they look amazing in their beautiful robes, but they're not extras in your travel documentary. Have some respect. Ask first. Always. I mean, come on. That's just common sense. And you know what? They'll almost always say yes. Pointing is considered rude. If you want to bring attention to a particular point of interest to your traveling companions, do so with discretion. The soles of your feet are considered unclean, and it is offensive to aim the bottoms of your feet at any Buddha, monks, or other people. And it should go without saying, don't light up a cigarette, cigar, pipe, joint, your vape pen, or a joint anywhere on the Wat grounds. I don't care if your vape pen smells like cinnamon and happy dreams. It's still disrespectful. It was during my first swing through Chiang Mai, before heading up into the mountains to the Ai Monastery, and I had parked myself at Gravity Cafe and Bistro, a great place on the corner of Rachamanka and Samlarn roads, where sweat and sanity all seemed to slide sideways by mid afternoon. I'd been pounding the pavement, doing recon around Chiang Mai's old city, trying to map its charm and contradictions, and dripping what I came to call a full bodied Thai sweat. That's not a figure of speech. It's a real condition, a kind of 360-degree sweat halo that seeps from every pore, no matter how many electrolytes you try to drink to fight it. It's as if your sweat is sweating. The only cure is sunset, aircon, or surrender. The plus side? Your skin looks amazing. As I sat there working through a sandwich and an iced lager, grateful to have found AC and a moment of stillness, I reflected on the temple I'd just left. Wat Phra Singh, Wurmaharaman. Try saying that 3 times fast without sounding like you're summoning a basilisk. But the moment wasn't entirely serene. What I had just witnessed inside the temple grounds was the kind of bizarre tourist behavior that makes you want to fake your passport nationality if you're from the same land as the following character. There she was, a woman whose accent betrayed some origin in Oceania, Australia, maybe New Zealand. Hard to tell. Her voice, though, was unmistakable. Loud, drawn out, the verbal equivalent of a highlighter pen with the end of sentences always on the rise. And she was angry. Full on temple rage. Her problem? She'd been denied entrance to the Wihan, the main hall that houses the principal Buddha statue by a monk, no less. A monk! Which, let's be honest, is probably the last person on earth you want to yell at if you care even remotely about your karmic scorecard. Her outfit was, well, not temple ready. She was decked out in a zebra patterned miniskirt that screamed Girls' Night in Ibiza, glittery high heels, and a gold sequined tube top that looked like it had beamed in from 1968 and hadn't been kept in climate controlled storage. The poor garment was clinging for dear life, waging a slow but inevitable war with gravity, and gravity, as always, was winning. I assumed she couldn't read, because at the entrance to the grounds and at every possible sightline, in multiple languages, including English, and at the entrance to most buildings, she had, I'll assume, missed every one of the signs posted that inappropriate attire is not acceptable and that visitors would be denied access if not covered. It's not like the dress code requires an evening jacket or a ball gown with pearls, or a head to toe niqab and abaya. She stomped, hands on hips, and launched into a tirade about how she had paid her entrance fee, and therefore she had every right to go in and look at the big gold Buddha, mate. Monk be damned. I watched the monk stand his ground, hands clasped in front of him, with the kind of serene patience I wish I could possess. His kindly and dignified silence, in response to the tirade being unleashed upon him, was quiet, unshakable, and completely ineffective against her cultural entitlement tsunami. When her first parry didn't sway the monk, she attempted to argue for women's rights, and that she was her own person with rights, and she had yet more rights. The beauty of the stoic monk in the face of such nonsense was epic. He never flinched as her gesticulating arms and hands, used to pronounce effect to emphasize her points, were like those tall blow up dolls that wave people into businesses. He never acted condescending or rude, not even a sneer on his lips showed. He was a personification of compassion and concern, most likely for her mental well being. And yet, she kept going. Blah, blah, blah. As if self expression via a bouncing sequin tube top was somehow a revolutionary act in the context of a 700-year-old religious sanctuary. Her campaign to enter failing at every step, even as he gently gestured to a small building back towards the entrance of the grounds where she could borrow a shawl to cover her shoulders and a sari like wrap to cover her knees. The temple could not have made compliance easier, and yet, as the idiom goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it put on a free wrap. Through it all, her man, bicep boy, husband, boyfriend, or personal trainer, stood by silently, arms crossed over his gym built chest, nodded in loyal agreement. He sported a tragically thin and patchy porn stash and a thick gold chain that looked like it had been picked up at a dollar discount store. His presence seemed to say, "Yeah, baby, you tell that monk. He'll get it at some point and then let you in." Sometimes a sigh just sneaks out. Mine did. The absurdity of it all was both maddening and oddly mesmerizing, like being unable to tear your gaze away from a body strewn crash site. Finally, she'd had enough. When she realized she was not getting her way, she grabbed her fellow by the arm and stormed off towards the entrance. The monk was following them with his eyes, a sad look on his face. He was young, a lad in his early 20s, if I had to guess. I walked over, greeting him with a Y, a bow with hands pressed together, and apologized for the ways of the world and the rudeness of some of the humans who inhabit it. He looked at me with a look that I did not understand. It was one of sadness and frustration. He and I talked about what had just happened when he said something that surprised me. Could you see the suffering she lives with? I was thinking more about the suffering her boy toy lived with, but the compassion that young monk showed for a person who had been berating him emphasized a very important lesson that everyone is in pain to some degree, and lashing out was merely a symptom. Some people carry that pain with silence and grace. Others wear it like a zebra print miniskirt and shout it into the world. But the pain's always there, bubbling just beneath the surface. I was dumbstruck and filled with admiration for that young man, who had just taken a verbal beating the likes of which I'd rarely witnessed in public. Another thing which that visit to a Wat taught me was on your first visit to a temple, if you are unfamiliar with the cosmology, the symbology, architecture, and iconography, it's a prudent idea to join a paid tour group. The docent led tours are inexpensive and created specifically for foreigners who want to actually learn something. As you walk past tour groups, it is common to hear the docent speaking languages from all over the world. The downside is the tours can be large groups. That means a timed and regimented walkthrough that doesn't leave space for musing and cruising. But you'll learn a lot about not only the Wat you're visiting, but the commonalities of Wats you might visit in the future. There is a lot going on in the symmetry of the grounds, the architectural design flourishes, and what each building is used for, making your next visit more informed, and to my mind, more informed means more enjoyable. Yeah, I'm woke. Sue me. Wat architecture follows a remarkably consistent set of principles across almost all temples in Thailand. With few exceptions, each Wat is composed of two main sections, the Futatha Wat and the Sangha Wat. This division isn't just practical, It reflects the spiritual and communal functions of the monastery. The Futatha Wat arena is dedicated to the Buddhist and is typically open to the public. It's where lay people come to make merit, light incense, and occasionally stare in wonder at a larger than life Buddha radiating serenity. While the architectural styles may vary from region to region, the layout and purpose of the buildings within the Futatha Wat are strikingly consistent. You'll almost always find Viharn, the main worship hall, an ubosat, or bot, the ordination hall, often considered the most sacred space, a bell tower, and one or more chetties. In contrast, the Senka the section of the temple where the monks live, eat, and sleep, is almost always closed to the general public. It includes living quarters, meditation spaces, study halls, libraries, and sometimes small gardens or artfully secluded areas for walking meditation. It's the engine room of the monastery, quieter, more utilitarian, and distinctly less photogenic, unless you're into laundry lines and alms bowls. Together, the Futatha Wat and Sangha Wat form the full spiritual and practical life of the Wat, a balance of devotion and discipline, public ritual and private practice. It's a layout that has endured for centuries. The chedi, also known as stupas, are large bell shaped domes which are often covered in gold leaf, gleaming in the sun like oversized trophies to devotion. At their core lies a relic chamber, typically housing remains or artifacts associated with the Buddha or revered monks. There is always a Wihan, the large, ornately decorated hall that contains large Buddha statues and artworks often depicting the life of the Buddha. The Wihan is an assembly hall where monks and lay Buddhists and the curious visitor congregate to pay respects to the Buddha, hold ceremonies, and more. Some, though not all, Wats include an ubosat, the ordination hall and the most sacred space in the monastery. The ubosat is where a senior monk, trained in the detailed rituals of ordination, induct novices into monastic life. Often, this hall is off limits to the public. Only temple monks and the Upajjhaya preceptor are permitted entry, underscoring its spiritual weight. There is often, but not always, a ho rakeng, a bell tower used for waking the monks and to call them to ceremonies. If no bell tower is on the grounds, a large gong is used for the same purpose. Often there is a structure called a sala. These are in the form of a pavilion offering shade and a place to rest or meditate. The structures and wats across Thailand are like architectural cousins. They share a lot of similarities, as if all the temples were made by the same design team. Take the roofs, for example. They cascade upward in neat tiers, like a layered cake, topped off with decorative barge boards that run along the peak center line of the roof. These barge boards are often carved into intricate designs, attached to the projecting apex of the pitched roof right in front of the gable, and those carvings usually feature Naga, the snake deity that seems to show up everywhere, both in Buddhist and Hindu traditions. Seriously, if Naga had a LinkedIn profile, he'd be the most connected deity in the world. The Naga is more than just a snazzy piece of decor, though. Ancient mythology tells a story that after the Buddha attained enlightenment while meditating under the Bodhi tree, a torrential downpour commenced. A giant snake like creature named Musalinda appeared from the underworld and used its hoods to shield the Buddha from the rain. Now that's what I call a good friend. A really big, scaly, multi headed friend. Nagas can also be found as the railings leading up temple steps, where they unfurl their giant serpent bodies, their heads at the entrance ready to give you a protective hiss blessing as you ascend. And if Naga doesn't quite do it for you, there's Garuda. This winged figure is the mount of the Hindu god Vishnu, its feathered wings spread out in elaborate designs, showcasing a mythical bird that's a spiritual equivalent of a rock star. Both Naga and Garuda are legends in Hindi and Buddhist iconography, often featured in local folk traditions as well. In some parts of the Himalayas, Nagas aren't just for decorating, they're considered the divine rulers of the land. The finials that stick out from the end corners of the barge boards are called hang hong. And yes, that's their official name, even though that sounds like something you'd order for takeout while wondering if you should use a spoon or chopsticks. You'll usually find Naga's head turned upward and away from the building like it's gazing into the universe. And, if you're lucky, you might encounter a Naga with multiple heads. At Doi Setop in Chiang Mai, each Naga is adorned with nine, yes, nine, heads. That's a lot of FaceTime screen filler, but hey, the more the merrier. Who doesn't need more protection these days? At the central peak of the roof, you'll find the ornament known as chofa, or sky tassel, which in Thailand often takes the form of Garuda's beak. Think of it as the crowning glory of the temple roof, completing the whole sacred yet stylish vibe. It's as if the roof had a feathered, mythical finishing touch, just to say, this temple isn't just functional, it's also très chic. As one of the most sought after attractions, not just in Thailand, but across much of Asia, Watts hold a magnetic pull for tourists, which, of course, means they also tend to get very crowded. If you want a moment of peace with your spiritual self, or even just a photo without someone grin bombing your frame, you best show up early. Really early. Like, before the tour bus crowds have finished their hotel buffet breakfast early. I always found it a bit jarring to watch those enormous tour buses roll into temple parking lots like clockwork, expelling wide eyed, sun hatted tourists like a spiritual clown car. Most of them shoveled in, clutching iced coffees in one hand and their phones in the other, capturing every gilded inch through their screens. Phones out, faces glazed over, recording everything, experiencing nothing. So much for awareness. In Bangkok, Chiang Mai, and Chiang Rai, there is no shortage of Wat marvels. Bangkok hosts some of the most symbolically important Wats in Southeast Asia, not only for their architecture, but for their enshrined history. These are snippets because many of the Bangkok temples are discussed more in depth later. Bangkok. Wat Phra Keo. Don't even think of littering. Wat Phra Keo, home of the fabled and fabulous Emerald Buddha, is located within the walled compound of the Grand Palace. Officially named Wat Phra Si Ratana Satsadaram, this is no roadside temple or dusty relic. It's the spiritual epicenter of a country that doesn't do anything halfway when it comes to devotion. The temple complex is among the most dazzling in the world, and for Thais, it is the most sacred of grounds. At its heart is the Ubosat, the consecrated ordination hall, constructed to house a statue whose story reads like a Southeast Asian whodunit history mystery. The Emerald Buddha, though technically not emerald, but a deep green jasper, was claimed from Laos by King Rama I in 1779 and relocated from Wat Arun to its current pedestal inside the Grand Palace. The statue had proven too sacred, too politically loaded, too cosmically significant to reside outside the king's watchful eye. Visiting the Grand Palace is an experience that doesn't so much ask for reverence as insist upon it. The grounds are immaculate in that only in royal compounds kind of way. Not a leaf out of place, not a tile out of line. I think weeds know they're not allowed. It's an alchemy of sacred geometry, opulent finishes, and a steady breeze of awe. Stand anywhere, turn slowly, and you'll see a riot of rich colors and dazzling gold. Uncountable spires adorning rooftops and jetties, mosaic tiled walls and halls shimmering everywhere like beetle wings, and statues frozen mid blessing. It's not subtle. The big draw is the Emerald Buddha, which has a fascinating history behind it, full of intrigue, as all good spiritual and historical artifacts should be. From India, where legend says it was carved, to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, to Burma, Myanmar, to the Kingdom of Cambodia, to the Kingdom of Laos, and finally to the Kingdom of Siam. The Emerald Buddha got to go on many adventures. According to myth, the Emerald Buddha was created in 43 BCE by a sage named Nagasena in the city of Pataliputra, India. Nagasena had help from the deities Vishnu and Indra, 500 years after Buddha attained nirvana. Not bad. Having a couple of heavy duty deities to help you with your sacred craft project has got to make the job easier. One account of how the Emerald Buddha, which had been lost to time, was rediscovered, tells the story that the statue wound up in a monastery in the Lan Na kingdom through a succession of conquests, i.e., looting, and then royal lineage marriages as it was passed around Asia. In 1434 AD, as the story goes, a bolt of lightning struck the Chedi at Wat Pa Yia, or Bamboo Forest Monastery in Chiang Rai, revealing a stucco Buddha statue inside. The Buddha was brushed off and placed in the abbot's residence. One day, the abbot noticed a chip of stucco on the nose had flaked off, revealing a green stone underneath. The abbot ordered the stucco removed, and once completed, they saw a small Buddha figure carved from the semi precious green stone, jasper, which is a type of hard jade. After years of bouncing around through conquest and succession, it was brought to Bangkok to the temple of Wat Arun, where he resided until 1785 AD, when he was brought to his current home under great pomp and celebration. Do not expect an imposing towering statue. The Emerald Buddha is a diminutive little fellow, sitting only 26 inches tall by 19 inches wide. However, the Emerald Buddha has a really nice wardrobe that Yves Saint Laurent would be envious of. During the summer season, he wears a stepped pointed crown, a breast pendant, a sash, a necklace, bracelets, all royal attire. The garments and jewelry are made of gold, embedded with precious gems. During the rainy season, he gets a headpiece of gold studded with sapphires and a gold embossed monk's robe draped over his left shoulder. The winter season finds the Emerald Buddha adorned with yet another golden headpiece studded with diamonds and a jewel fringed gold mesh shawl draped over him. Nice attire, and you get the King of Thailand as your personal valet. It's a good gig being the Emerald Buddha. Wat Arun, the Temple of Dawn. Standing tall and proud on the right bank of the Chao Phraya, the big river that flows through the heat and heart of Bangkok, ancient Wat Arun stands tall against a skyline of modernity. This striking temple, standing proud at 282 feet tall, is a showcase of both architecture and art spanning centuries of political willpower and artistic vision. I first saw Wat Arun from across the Chao Phraya River while I was having dinner with one of my monk brothers who was a Bangkok native. He had promised to take me out when I was back in Bangkok to a restaurant which he said represented the best dining experience in the city, featuring classic, though elevated Thai dishes. It was a warm, clear night, and across the river, Wat Arun, located on the opposite bank of the river, was lit up like something out of a fairy tale. Its centerpiece, a Khmer style prang, the tall central tower, glowed against a starry sky, its outer four prangs in perfect symmetry, creating a vista that made my jaw drop with its power and beauty. I knew then that I'd cancel the plans I had made and head there the next day to check it out with my dear friend Chalermwan. Funny that I saw it at night because that the translated name means Temple of Dawn. Gotta love the irony. The main pagoda had undergone many restorations over the centuries, as the limestone and ceramic tiles used for construction and adornment are constantly being bombarded with heat, humidity, rain, and more recently, smog, which creates acid rain, which loves to eat away at limestone. The most recent renovation began in 2013 and was completed in 2017. Touring the magnificent temple grounds, going up the impossibly steep stone steps to the high walkway of the central praying was incredible. You could feel the majestic history of the Wat all around you, permeating you. Something I discovered that is quite unique about Wat Arun is that it was constructed not only with Buddhist principles in mind. The three levels represent primary existence on bottom, the heaven of fulfillment in the middle, and the seven realms of happiness up top. But Hindu and Chinese cosmology and symbology are represented in the motifs throughout the temple complex. The name Arun itself is derived from the Hindu deity Aruna, charioteer of the sun god Surya. This is not unusual in Thailand, where inclusiveness and the respect for other spiritual beliefs and religions are the norm rather than an uncomfortable exception. Wat pho? No, not the soup. Wat Fraya Chetufon Wimanan Kalaram Ratacha War Mahawihan, or Wat Pho for those of us who simply cannot pronounce the name, is home to one of the world's largest reclining Buddhas. It is one of the oldest and largest Wats in Bangkok, and home to the largest collection of Buddhas, over 1,000 in Thailand. Building the Wat began in 16th century, again by King Rama I. He was a busy guy and wanted a lot of merits, though it was King Rama III who, in 1832 AD, had the reclining Buddha and temple commissioned and built to further the good weeks of his works of his grandfather. The image of a reclining Buddha, head resting in hand as he lay dying, yet completely at peace, is a popular motif throughout Southeast Asia. It symbolizes the Buddha entering nirvana, thus ending the cycle of rebirth. The reclining Buddha at Wat Pho is the third largest in Thailand, but the elegance of this statue has made it one of the most popular artistic expressions in the world, and aside from the soles of his feet, is completely layered with gold leaf. Buddha's feet are equally impressive, inlaid with mother of pearl. Each foot displays 108 intricate inlaid dioramas. Flowers, dancers, elephants, tigers, and altar accessories are engraved as a kind of roadmap to discover the next Buddha to appear in this realm of existence. He is quite a sight to behold. He's big. Not just big, he's huge. The reclining Buddha is just shy of 151 feet long and 49 feet tall. Housed in Phra Buddha Sayas Vihara, the hull itself is beautiful, adorned with complex murals on every surface and pillar. The Wat Pho compound contains four great chedi, 91 small chedi, a small central shrine, spacious viharas, and pavilions and a museum. The ceramic tile covered chedis throughout the complex are all different in style and size, each one similar yet unique in its artistic expression. Large stone Chinese statues depicting deities and warriors are found throughout the grounds, guarding the gates along the perimeter as sentinels at the inner gates. But it's not just the gilded, enormous reclining Buddha, incredibly beautiful chedi and art that surrounds you at every turn that makes Wat Pho special. While the Grand Palace grounds, just down the street, are immaculate, the grounds of Wat Pho are stunningly beautiful, serene, and magical. Each part of the complex has a unique aura to it, from elegant gardens filled with birdsong to potted trees where one can spend time in contemplation. Wat Pho has a serenity and beauty beyond all other Wats I've visited throughout Thailand. Wat Pho is also unique due to its historical foundation as a medical education institution, which to this day is open to the public. It is also the birthplace of traditional Thai massage techniques, and as well as housing a traditional medical science and massage school, it has a sala pavilion where visitors can get a Thai massage from masters of the art for a nominal donation. But my favorite part of my visit were the school kids. Groups of students were wandering around with clipboards in their hands, approaching tourists with a questionnaire. They were adorable. I was approached by a group and enjoyed their questions. Who was I? Where was I from? Was this my first time to Thailand? What was I doing in Thailand? How long would I be there? Where else would I be going? What were my impressions? What do I do for a career? They were adorable and worked their English skills. They would ask me if they were saying something correctly. At the end of questioning from both groups, they asked to take pictures with me. So we hammed it up for selfies, and then came the best part. They handed me small candies, handmade at their schools. Chiang Mai, Wat Phra Tat Doi Sutep. Often referred to simply as Doi Sutep, it is also the name of the mountain atop where it is located. It is perched up high overlooking the city of Chiang Mai and is accessible by foot via a series of trails built throughout the forested mountains, bicycle, quite an uphill climb, scooter, motor car, motorcycles, bus, and the fleet of Songtao. From the temple, the views of downtown Chiang Mai on a cloudless day are incredible. But that mountain isn't just scenic, it's storied. A monk named Sumantera, as legend tells, had a vision. He was instructed to travel to Peng Cha to found a holy relic. He did, and discovered what was said to be a shoulder bone of the Buddha. Mysterious powers surrounded the relic. It glowed, moved on its own, even duplicated itself. But when he brought it to King Dhamaraja of Sukhothai, nothing happened. No miracles, no divine light show. The king, unimpressed, told the monk to keep it. Enter King Nu Neon, CEO of the Lana Kingdom, who heard the tale and saw an opportunity. In 1368, Sumatera traveled north to present the relic. This time, the relic snapped in two. The larger half was tied to the back of a white elephant, because if you're going to let fate decide something, might as well go full folklore, and the elephant was released into the wild. It climbed Doi Sutep, trumpeted 3 times, and then keeled over. Naturally, this was interpreted as a divine sign, and construction of the temple began where the elephant died in 1383 AD. Of course, it could have simply been the elephant dying of a freaking heart attack from climbing the mountain, but we're talking mythology here. The name Wat Phra Tat Doi Sutep is rich in layers. Phra denotes sacredness. That refers to a relic, and Wat is a temple. So, yes, we're talking about a sacred temple built to house a relic of the Buddha himself. Legend holds that it rests in the center of the main chedi, just above the octagonal base and below the lotus bud spire. Whether or not you believe the story, the reverence in the air is real. Due to the Buddha's bone, Doi Sutep is one of the most sacred pilgrimage spots in Thailand and indeed throughout Southeast Asian countries. Chiang Mai, being the historic center of the Lan Na kingdom, going back to the 14th century, makes this beautiful Wat something a little above and beyond your everyday temple. Doi Sutep gets busy, remarkably busy. One day, an Aussie friend texted me at the same time that I was reaching out to her. Both of us asked the other if we wanted to go up the mountain to visit the temple. It was meant to be. So, with an assigned meeting place and time, we hooked up at the base of the mountain to grab a song tao. She was fluent in Thai, which made negotiating the price much easier, as those little red trucks charge much more per person if they are not fully loaded. Up we went, passing numerous bicycle jockeys, power pedaling up the mountain in their peacock colored spandex. Next to the parking area, flowing down the hill like a terraced vertical shopping mall, was a public market. Dozens of small stalls sold food, memorabilia, clothing, and, of course, touristy swag. But it was up the hill that intimidated me. I had seen the pictures, but the long stairs leading to the monastery stretched to the sky, creating its own horizon through the surrounding jungle. 306 steps, flanked by enormous undulating Naga serpents in green and gold, wound their way up, myth turned sculpture. I counted every one. The stairs weren't just a physical climb, they were a rite of passage. By the time we reached the top, our legs trembled under lactic revolt, while our lungs begged for mercy. Our sweat had achieved full woke AF status. We stepped into the inner grounds, and I had to stop for a second. This temple was almost unnervingly symmetrical, like someone had used a divine protractor to lay the place out. It was iPhone tight, all killer, no filler. It was Thailand's Father's Day, the national holiday celebrating the late King Bhumibol Adulaji Brahma IX, and Wat Doi Sutep was decked out for the occasion. Paper lanterns by the hundreds in every color hung from the eaves. 1,000 strands of prayer flags stretched up the central stupa like a maypole. Monks threaded through the crowd, grinning like kids at a carnival. There was reverence, sure, but also joy, noise, and the gentle mayhem of a culture that knows how to throw a party for its king. The layout of the temple is circular, designed for circumambulation. Pilgrims walk clockwise around the golden chetty. Of course, I joined in. Had to, didn't I? We prayed and made offerings. Despite the crush of people, there was a rhythm to it all, like a living mandala. Eventually, though, the crowds wore me down as low hanging clouds blocked the legendary view over the city. We wandered to the open air cafe perched over a lush ravine. We sipped lattes, watching birds rise and fall on the thermals, as if they too had come for a better perspective. Bronwyn wanted to find brass bells for her house in Hobart, so we descended the Naga staircase, thankfully easier in reverse, though hell on the knees, and wandered into a quieter market tucked off to the right. This was no Rube Tchotchke bazaar. This was a real deal. Antique wood carvings, hand woven textiles, heirloom pottery, and in one glass case, an ancient and incredibly ornate sakyant bamboo tattoo kit nestled in a carved teak box. It was stunning. It made me want to tattoo myself. I still regret not buying it. Bronwyn had made her decision, mixing and matching bells from several different sets to achieve the style she was looking for. Wat Chetty Luang Varav Ihara, a living wreck. Wat Chetty Luang is located in the old town of the new city of Chiang Mai. Once home to the precious Emerald Buddha, construction of the huge stupa was initiated in the mid 1300s. Though not completed until the mid 15th century, it was the largest building in the Lan Na Kingdom, standing at just under 270 feet in the highlands of northern Thailand. It dwarfed all other structures and was visible to the entire region. Sadly, in 1545 AD, an enormous earthquake struck the region, toppling much of the upper temple. While it still looked like a crumbled ruin, the early 1990s saw the Chedi partially restored. Japan and UNESCO provided financing, but the end results have been controversial. Many detractors say the restoration elements were not in the traditional style, losing historical Lana architectural elements. Today, a copy of the Emerald Buddha, marking the 600th anniversary celebration, was installed in the reconstructed eastern niche. Made of black jade, it is worth spending time there to gaze upon. Don't get me wrong, the history and antiquity of the stupa were magnificent, but it somehow felt more like a tourist attraction than a spiritual center. That morning I wandered the temple grounds, circling the ancient stupa beneath a canopy of shade trees. Wide stone benches lined the perimeter, perfect for sitting, squinting, and pretending to be deep in reflection. I gave it a shot. The place felt heavy with history, but oddly fractured. The new temple, all polished and pristine in modern Wat style, looked like it had been airlifted in from a theme park. It sat awkwardly beside the massive, crumbling brick stupa, the true anchor of the place, less a companion than a visual contradiction. Tucked deeper within the grounds lies one of the most curious and frankly unsettling corners of Chiang Mai's spiritual legacy, the city pillar, the Intahakan. Unlike the open grace of most temple spaces, this one hums with something darker, heavier. The pillar is housed in its own shrine, set apart like something not to be revered so much as contained. It's said to protect the city, but not all spirits guard with benevolent hands. Locals offer a quick why as they pass, not in worship, but as a kind of spiritual insurance policy. A subtle practiced gesture that says, I see you, I respect you, now please leave me the hell alone. Back home, founding a city involves paperwork and a board clerk in a fluorescent lit office. Here, it once required blood, bone, and an understanding that some forces don't play nice. Only men are allowed to enter the city pillar shrine, a rule that struck me as both archaic and suspicious. According to legend, these pillars were once consecrated through human sacrifice. Young men, and sometimes pregnant women, the more potent the life taken, the stronger the spirit that would be bound to protect the city. No bones have ever been found, but then again, no one seems eager to dig. Some claim the practice lasted into the mid 19th century. Whether that's folklore designed to thrill or history quietly and uneasily buried, the air around the shrine felt undeniably heavy, thick with old power and secrets best left undisturbed. That women are still barred from entering, even now, only deepens the unease. But it wasn't until I was strolling past at night a few evenings later that the temple truly came alive. The stupa, lit from beneath on all four sides, glowed like a sentinel standing guard over the city, its ancient surface flickering with the ghosts of a million candle-lit prayers. The air was still reverent. Time felt suspended. And then, without warning, the sky dumped a biblical downpour. One moment I was marveling at sacred geometry bathed in golden light. The next I was soaked to the soul, slipping on stone. Nothing snaps you out of spiritual awe quite like wet underwear. Wat Fra Singh Waramana Hawa Wihan. This was the first Wat I spent time at during my travels through Thailand, which I've written about before. For Wat Phra Singh was the site where I witnessed a woman who didn't want to be encumbered by a covering for her shoulders and knees, causing quite a scene. Wat Phra Singh is located in the old city center. The main entrance gate is guarded by Singhs, Chinese lions, which is a unique touch. Wat Phra Singh is located at the end of Ratchademonan Road, which runs east from the temple via the ancient Taipei Gate via direct line to the Ping River. Construction of the temple began in 1345 AD and was originally intended to house the ashes of King Fayu's father. Now that's a loyal and dedicated son. The crown jewel of the Wat Phra Singh complex is Wihan Lai Kam, a striking blend of teak and stucco built in the classic Lana style, ornate, compact, and somehow managing to look both humble and royal at once. Inside sits Phra Buddha Sihing, Thailand's second most revered Buddha image, playing silver medalist to the Emerald Buddha in Bangkok. Though, let's be honest, the Emerald Buddha is roughly the size of a fat house cat and spends most of its time dressed like it's attending a royal garden party. Phra Buddha Sihing's origin is shrouded in a haze of legend and possibly deliberate vagueness. Legend says it was sculpted in the image of Siddhartha Gautama himself, the lion of the Shakya clan, a bold claim that conveniently can't be verified. The original? Long gone. maybe looted during one of the many sackings of Chiang Mai, maybe relocated during a colonial moment of curiosity. Odds are it's sipping Tuscan light somewhere in the living room of a retired European diplomat, sandwiched between a stolen Khmer bas relief and an infinity pool with excellent feng shui. Historical accounts claim the statue originated at the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya, India, passed through Sri Lanka, Ceylon, made its way to Nakhon Si Thammarat, Lahore, then to Ayutthaya, and finally arrived in Chiang Mai. That's quite a journey for a single artifact, and a tempting one for sticky fingered pilgrims. Today, there are three contenders for the title of authentic Phra Buddha Sihing: the one in Chiang Mai, another in Wat Phra Mahatat, and the third housed in the Bangkok National Museum. None have been tested or authenticated, and just to keep things spicy, one of the heads mysteriously vanished in 1922, as one does. I returned to Wat Phra Singh for a quieter, more contemplative experience, a monk chat. This daily activity allows visitors to sit with a monk, make a small donation, and discuss life's big questions, or just talk about your dog. The monk listens, offers thoughtful reflections, and concludes the session with a blessing. During the ceremony, he ties a knotted white cord around your wrist, a sai sin, well, chanting a personalized benediction. Tradition holds that you should wear it until it falls off naturally. Mine was tied on October 30th, 2024, at precisely 11:11 a.m. And as I write this on July 22nd, 2025, it's still hanging on. That's either the sign of a truly powerful blessing or incredibly good knotwork. Possibly both. Chiang Rai. Wat Rong Kun. Turn down the lights. The White Temple. Yep, it's white. Gleaming white. Dentists across the globe twist with envy at how white the place is. Its sparkle dances across your retinas due to thousands of small mirror tiles set into every conceivable surface of this visually stunning ode to the Buddha's life journey. It's like someone took a giant scoop of snow, threw in a bunch of crystals, and said, "Let's build a temple." On a bright sunny day, I highly recommend a welder's helmet. It's that white. The juxtaposition between the blazing white structure, symbolizing the Buddha's purity, and the thousands upon thousands of reflective mirror tiles, symbolizing reflection and wisdom, makes a bold statement. The temple itself reflects the idea of reflection. Pretty clever, right? This constant mirroring is an invitation to think about our own inward spiritual journey towards enlightenment, a central theme in the Dhamma. It's all about self examination, shedding desire, and purging the ego so you can see your true nature. A kind of spiritual exfoliation. Located 14 kilometers to the south of Chiang Rai, unless you are in for a long walk, not recommended because its entrance is located off a broad highway. You'll need to hire a ride. But the good news is that every form of transportation in Chiang Rai will get you there. I called a grab cab to head out, figuring I'd find some way to get back to town once there. One of the perks of having an internationally renowned artist at the helm of a project like this, who also has the funds to make it happen, is that the entrance fee is a mere 100 baht, about $3 US. It's a beautiful gesture, showing Chalamachai Kosepat's commitment to making the temple accessible to everyone. Additional donations are welcome, but capped at 10,000 baht, around $300, as he is adamant about not being beholden to any large donors, be they corporate or private. This is a rare move in the world of big ticket cultural projects, where money often talks louder than the artist's vision. Kosita Pepat wants the temple to remain a personal creation, free from the strings of corporate or private interests. Level up, Chalamacher Chai. By the end of the 19th century, the original temple on this site had crumbled into near oblivion. Chiang Rai, smaller and scrappier than its cousin Chiang Mai, didn't have the resources, or maybe just didn't have the interest, to save it. The Sangha aged, passed on, and the temple quietly collapsed into ruin. Fast forward to 1997. Enter Chalermanchai Kosepipat, a Chiang Rai native with international acclaim, a taste for the surreal, and, crucially, a very healthy bank account. He didn't restore the temple, he raised it, and from the rubble conjured something wildly new, a gleaming otherworldly monument to Buddhism, Thai identity, and unfiltered artistic vision. And it worked. Today, Wat Rong Kun, the White Temple, pulls in tourists like moths to a mirrored lotus, easily the most visited site in the city. The moment you step through the gates and onto the path toward the bridge, it hits you. This isn't just a temple, it's an art installation, a dark dreamscape, a warning. Cholam Chai doesn't traffic in subtlety. His symbolism is bold, unflinching, and at times unsettling in exactly the way he intends. The cycle of rebirth installation, which you cross en route to the main hall, doesn't ease you in, it grabs you. Hundreds of hands and anguished faces stretch upward on both sides of the bridge from a pit, clawing for something: desire, escape, relief from suffering. Their neediness is palpable. The sheer volume of it makes the desperation almost unbearable. It's a stunning reversal, suffering rendered in purity. A reminder that unrestrained desire is the real hell, and that salvation isn't found in reaching for more, but in learning to let go. Heavy stuff. At the foot of the bridge stands two kinari, mythical beings from Buddhist lore with the upper body of a woman and the lower half of a giant bird. They're symbols of grace and beauty, but here they are more than decorative. They serve as gatekeepers, guiding visitors past the worst of human impulses: temptation, greed, desire. Their presence is serene but unblinking, like they've seen it all before and know most of us are still going to screw it up. They remind me of Rodin's Gates of Hell, not just in form, but in function. This is suffering and longing sculpted into stillness. It's not subtle, and it's not supposed to be. You don't walk away thinking about tourist trinkets. You walk away thinking about merit, rebirth, and the uneasy truth that most of our problems start with wanting too much. One of the interesting things about the entire temple design is its allegorical story telling of the Buddhist path towards enlightenment. Each building, as you cycle through the well thought out storyline, takes you along the journey from rebirth to nibbana, something unique from any other Wat I'd visited. A Wat as a storytelling vehicle. Wat Rong Suea 10. Because who doesn't need a blue temple? In Chiang Rai, having two iconic bold Wats was not enough. Now that they had the White Temple, in stark contrast to the Black House, Van Dam, a private art museum and temple, they needed another equally impressive temple in a new color as well. And they got one in the form of Wat Song Suea 10, or Temple of the Dancing Tiger, in the Rim Kok neighborhood. Sporting a modern design and painted a bold, striking cerulean blue, with a lot of gold to boot. Wat Rong Suea 10 is another very unique temple. Those crazy Chiang Rai kids. Legend, okay, maybe not legend, but let's pretend, has it that one boozy karaoke night, the Chiang Rai community decided they needed another crown jewel temple, something that would dazzle, disturb, and make Grandma gasp. The call went out for designs that screamed shock and awe. Enter Futa Kabakau, aka Sala Nok. a protege and contemporary of Chalerm Chai Kosipetpat, the mastermind behind the White Temple. With white and black temples already taken, Sulanok went bold. Deep, electric sapphire blue, trimmed with gold so sharp it practically winks with attitude. Completed in 2016, Wat Rong Soea 10's central building is a showstopper, not just for its vivid colors, but for the intricate, almost hypnotic detail covering every surface. And guarding the staircase? Two of the largest, most vivid multi headed Naga guardians I've ever seen, snarling like they mean business. Wat Song Swea 10 is designed in the dramatic neo traditional, read wild and wacky, style of Buddhist artistic expression, pioneered by Chalern Chai, creating outrageous sculptures with bold psychedelic flourishes. It was an early morning so pristine it practically begged for a heroic stroll. I slipped on my leather flip flops, the ones that apparently qualify me as a local legend. No, really. Over a latte in Chiang Mai, a woman had paused mid sip just to declare, "You're the American who walks everywhere in leather sandals." That's right, folks. I've earned my street cred one step at a time in Olukais. I set out to conquer the 6 kilometers from Gita's guest house to the Blue Temple with zero planning finesse. My route hugged a busy highway for most of the way, because why take the scenic route when you can smell exhaust and dodge speeding trucks? Still, the morning was cool, traffic sparse, and the sky that kind of blue that fools you into thinking, this won't suck. I came to the bridge spanning the Cock River. Yes, the one begging for a bad joke. As I crossed, I was hit by a pastoral scene so perfectly Southeast Asian, it could have been plucked from a postcard or a daydream. The river stretched broad and calm, its banks punctuated by primitive wooden houses on stilts, weathered but sturdy, like old sailors standing watch. Small rice paddies patched the landscape, their neon green chute glowing in the morning light. White egrets stalked the shallows with dignity, while smaller birds darted and sang high in the trees. A grassy spit jutted into the water, a perfect natural stage where half a dozen water buffalo grazed the tall grass, their slick black hides gleaming under the sun like lacquered sculptures. Flat bottomed boats drifted lazily nearby, fishermen poling quietly, tossing fine seine nets in wide, lazy arcs that rippled the mirror smooth surface. The whole scene was so vividly alive it made me pause, blink twice, and remember why the hell I love this place. Walking further, I found the small side street leading me within a few hundred feet to a driveway into the parking lot of the Blue Temple. I was expecting something more akin to the White Temple, with its broad, divided, and landscaped driveway, tour buses, shops, and glittering signs pointing everywhere. This was much more to my liking. The Blue Temple was tucked away in a local neighborhood, and if you didn't know it was there or were not paying attention, it would be easy to pass by. As I neared the parking area, I spotted Pascal perched on a bench, the Swiss bike tourer with just enough madness to make you respect him. We had met the night before at the reggae bar in downtown Chiang Rai, where his stories of pedaling across Asia sounded like equal parts adventure and mild insanity. He was taking a breather for a few days, waiting on a friend to join him for the Thai leg of his journey. Buried in his phone, he didn't notice me slide onto the bench beside him. When he finally looked up, he did the classic double take, like I'd suddenly materialized out of thin air. Then that broad grin spread across his face, lighting up with the unmistakable spark of recognition. "Good morning. This is a surprise. How are you? How's your head from last night? We may have had more than a few beers and shots." "I'm good. Took a nice long walk to get the body working and sweat the drinks out. I thought I'd come up here and check out Song Sui 10. And all this Blue, I said as I waved across the parking lot at the temple compound where the deep sapphire theme was in full force. I looked over at his bike, shocked that it looked like something you'd see in a postcard from some nondescript village in the Vietnam Highlands, dating back a century. You rode that across the continent? Pascal laughed hard. Hell no! My touring bike is getting worked on. I rented that from a hostel to get around for a few days. I was going to say, you're even tougher than you look, riding that thing around the world. Pascal laughed. It's awful, but I must keep pedaling from muscle memory. The seat is torture. We chatted a little more, then said, "See you at the bar tonight," as I rose and headed to the entrance of the Watt to check it out. Australian, German, Spanish, French, Eastern European, Russian, and a couple from Iceland, the early birds quietly marveling at the temple's unapologetic blaze of blue in the early morning sun. Inside, the murals were pure visual jazz. Against the deep cerulean walls, white and gold mythological scenes leaped forward like three-dimensional visions. It was historical Buddhist storytelling on acid, and it worked. If blue is your favorite color, then Wat Song Sue Ten is for you. Not only are the existing temple structures a deep, rich cerulean hue, but the inside murals use the same colors, making the depictions of elements of Buddhist myths and legends really pop. The method of using a dark background to make the lighter colors and whites pop out of a painting is not new. It's one of the oldest tricks of the trade. At Wat Song Suea 10, it is used to incredible effect, making all the elements portraying the stories come to life vividly. After wandering the temple grounds, taking it all in, I sat down with a cappuccino and realized I didn't need to retrace my highway death march. A longer, quieter path back to Gita's appeared on my GPS. Glorious. I was just about to start off when a red haired woman, about my age, bounced over with a sunny grin and a familiar accent. Where you from, mate? Washington State. You? I replied. Ireland. Country Cork. City proper. Oh, do you know the McCleary family? I asked. She shrieked, They're my cousins. Turned out, Suanan was going to walk back to town as her tuk-tuk driver had tried to swindle her, and being Irish, she let him know that was a very bad idea. Never, ever mess with an Irish lass. I liked her immediately. And just like that, Swanin and I were off, two strangers ambling through the quiet residential streets of Chiang Rai. The walk back was much better. We shared a fluffy croissant sandwich and some fried chicken, picked out some road beers at 7-Eleven, as one does when hanging out with an Irish lass, and wound our way back toward town, trading travel tales, laughing, and comparing absurd hotel and restaurant reviews. When we reached the bridge over the Cock River, instead of heading up the stairs and onward, she tugged my hand and veered toward the riverbank. Let's stop for a while, she said. We cracked open our beers and sat in the grass, watching the egrets stalk the shadows as fish of an unknown type jumped at a hatch. Trading stories of heartbreaks, breakthroughs, and everything in between, we both felt the traveler's connection. When I pointed out that her name, Swanen, means wise river, she looked at me in surprise. How did you know that? Hey, just because I'm an American doesn't mean I don't know stuff. She laughed, her red hair catching the midday sun like a halo as she leaned down to me. Time stopped. Sometimes a temple visit changes your spiritual trajectory. Sometimes it just changes your afternoon. An hour disappeared, and with plans to meet up at the reggae bar that evening, Swanen and I parted ways. Sometimes heading out early in the morning has unintended consequences, and though Swanen never came to the bar, I'll always remember that wonderful moment on the bank of the Cock River. Wat Hui Pla Keng, a giant Buddha goddess? Wat Hui Pla Keng can be seen for miles across Chiang Rai's province. its luminous figure rising above the rolling countryside like a celestial lighthouse. Locals and tourists alike call it the Big Buddha, but that nickname's a bit off the mark. It isn't Buddha at all. She is Guan Yin, the Buddhist goddess of mercy, gazing out over a vast pastoral fields and gently rolling hills with a calm that feels personal, no matter where you stand. The staff at Gita's guest house arranged, per my request, a driver to take me out to Hua Pla Kang early in the morning. I wanted to catch the temple in that soft golden light around 7 a.m. My ride showed up, and wouldn't you know it, it was Nam, my tuk tuk friend, the same cheerful soul I'd met on arrival, the one I'd shared beers and laughs with on the curb at the 7-Eleven and later at the reggae bar. We locked eyes, grinned, and shook hands like old friends reuniting after a war, or at least a few paragraphs. Then we were off on the 30-minute, 14-kilometer ride through Chiang Rai's lush rural countryside. On the way, Nam told me about growing up in Chiang Mai, how he and his buddies learned English from Hollywood movies and recorded late night TV episodes. We pulled over for coffee and set the tone for what would be a damn fine morning. Wat Huea Pla King is the realized vision of a single monk, Thop Chok Tisawaso, who took what was once an ancient, very modest backwoods temple and transformed it into something extraordinary. It took him just 4 years. The man was clearly a force of nature. Because it sits outside the city core, Wei Pla Keng is quieter than other Chiang Rai temples, though its popularity is growing fast. That morning, I had it almost entirely to myself. The silence was luxurious, except for the birds. They were exulting in the new dawn, loudly. Guan Yin herself sits perched on a high hill, then rises 259 feet tall above the hill crest. She's about the height of a 25-story building, radiating a peaceful power that stops you in your tracks. Her gleaming white surface catches the light in a way that makes her seem both solid and otherworldly. 114 grand stone steps led to a massive, broad white stone foundation. Once at the top of the steps for 40 baht, roughly $1, ride the elevator up through the interior to a viewing platform nestled behind her third eye. From there, the countryside spreads out like a painting, verdant, misty, eternal, and very, very green. Inside, everything is white, and I mean everything. Ornate dragons, delicate trees, deities of all sizes and shapes, each sculpted in stunning three-dimensional detail like the inside of a dream carved from alabaster. The atmosphere is so hushed and clean it feels like walking inside a snowflake. Next to Guan Yin sits the temple's second marvel, a 9-story pagoda that blends Chinese and Lana Thai styles in a way that shouldn't work, but somehow does. It's pyramid shaped, less traditional than the rounded or squared silhouettes you usually see, and instead of nagas flanking the staircase, there are two brilliantly coiled, elaborate Chinese dragons. The whole structure is painted in firecracker red, imperial gold, jade green, and bright yellow, standing in dramatic contrast to the all white serenity of Guan Yin next door. The effect is stunning. The place shouldn't be peaceful. The bright and busy facade of the pagoda adds an energy in concert to the serenity of Guan Yin. Maybe because it was early, or maybe because I was there with an open heart and a good cup of coffee in me. Maybe it was just Buddha magic. The effect is unexpectedly stunning. By all rights, it should be a visual nightmare. That riot of color and detail stacked next to Guan Yin's calm, minimalist grandeur? It ought to clash. But instead, the two play off each other like yin and yang. The pagoda doesn't disrupt the peace, it energizes it. Maybe it was the early hour. Maybe it was a rare alignment of caffeine, clear skies, and spiritual openness. Or maybe it was just good old fashioned Buddha vibe, the kind that doesn't need to explain itself to tourists with opinions. On the way back to town, I turned to Nam. You busy after this? Or hungry? Nam laughed. I'm Thai. I'm always hungry. I told him lunch was on me, but he started to politely refuse until I reminded him that his hire time wasn't over yet and that I had no interest in seeing another temple or waterfall or tea plantation. I wanted food and conversation. He relented, smirking. McDonald's, he deadpanned. I shot him a look. Try again. Nom. I was kidding. I don't like McDonald's. I liked Nom more every time we met. And there we go, the end of chapter 13. Hey, Gimme. Sorry, I record these if you weren't familiar, so I can't stop in the middle to say hello. But hopefully you saw the whatever I did to say hello. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. All right, guys, we are 2.5 hours into a 1.5 hour stream. God, these chapters run long. There's no, I mean, when the chapters are an hour to an hour and a half long, yeah, there's just no good way to make it an hour and a half if the first one was an hour. What are you gonna do? I hope you guys are enjoying this story. Um, he is quite descriptive as he goes through. Great tourist guide for a lot of this stuff if you are interested in learning more about the food, the culture, a lot of that stuff. Check out these things. Again, as always, check out the book, The Flow, A Hedonist Guide to Buddhism, Meditation, and Travels in Thailand, a travelogue memoir by Lawrence Davidson. Um, if you look on the YouTube or Rumble videos, I've got some links there. The YouTube recorded videos will have even more links to go check out, Larry. As always, thank you to all of you. The greatest gift that you can give me is the gift of your time. And I appreciate that you gave it to me this evening, whether it was for 5 minutes or the full 2.5 hours. If you haven't already, make sure you stop out to the YouTube channel, give me a subscribe over there, would you please? Thank you. I appreciate it. Helps me to continue to grow the channel. And I have lots of audiobooks, basically audiobooks, live readings, for you to check out there. So stop on over and do so. I will be back again Thursday night with some fantastic, wonderful, magnanimous, entertaining, energizing MechWarrior Online, and we will be continuing to read our Battletech book, Tactics of Duty. Hope you guys will stop by and check it out on Thursday. And I will be back Saturday with starting on chapter 14 of The Flow. If you missed any, make sure you stop out to the YouTube channel and check it all out. And until I do see you guys all again, have yourselves a wonderful evening, a fantastic week ahead, and I will see you guys all again really soon. Have a great night, everyone.